Let's get to the big news, though. Let's waste no time here. Obviously, Julian Assange has reached a plea deal with the United States, allowing him to go free. NBC News reported last night WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange plans to plead guilty to a conspiracy charge this week as part of a plea deal with the U.S. Justice Department that will allow him to go free after having spent 5 years in a British prison, according to court documents. Assange was charged by criminal information, which typically signifies a plea deal, with conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defense information, the court documents say. A letter from Justice Department official Matthew McKenzie to U.S. District Judge Ramona Manglona of the Northern Mariana Islands District said that Assange would appear in court at 9 a.m. local time Wednesday to plead guilty, and that the Justice Department expects Assange will return to Australia, his country of citizenship, after the proceedings. So he chose to go and enter this plea in the Mariana Islands because he did not want to come to the continental United States. Who could blame him? And apparently this is more on the way to Australia.
He said, I put on enough weight in prison. I don't need to go to the U.S.
Right. Doesn't need to drive through, doesn't need a Big Mac. Not craving that on the way to Australia. Court documents revealing Assange's plea deal were filed Monday evening in U.S. District Court for the Northern Mariana Islands, a U.S. territory in the Pacific Ocean. Assange was expected to appear in that court and to be sentenced to 62 months with credit for time served in British prison, meaning since he's already been there for 5 years, he would be free to return to Australia, where he was born, a free man. This video was released on YouTube just moments after the news broke. This was recorded the week before this news broke. But as you can see, here is Julian's wife, Stella, along with WikiLeaks editor-in-chief, Kristen Harfinson. I hope I said that right. I think that sounded pretty good. I always struggle with his last name. But here they are recording a video about a week ago saying that if you're watching this, that means Assange is free. So they had been expecting this for about a week. So here they are.
Wednesday, the 19th of June, and it's exactly 12 years today since Julian went into the Embassy of Ecuador, which granted him political asylum, protection from persecution, from torture, from a life imprisonment. And 12 years on, I'm visiting Julian in a high-security prison. But this period of our lives, I'm confident now, has come to an end. And I think that by this time next week, Julian will be free.
I just came out of Belmarsh prison in what I hope is my last visit to see Julian here in this prison where he spent 5 years, 2 months and 2 weeks. And if you're seeing this, it means he is out.
Things are moving very quickly, and it's very difficult for us to plan or even play out the next few hours and days. But if everything goes well, Julian will be on a plane on the way to freedom.
The cost to Julian, of course, has been to be deprived of freedom for all these years. In the battle for journalistic freedom, freedom to publish, foundation of democracy.
Throughout the years of Julian's imprisonment and persecution, an incredible movement has been formed. A movement of people from all walks of life, from around the world, who support not just Julian and not just us and our family, but what Julian stands for, truth and justice. We still need your help. What starts now with Julian's freedom is a new chapter.
I can say in earnest that without your support, this would have never materialized, this important day of joy, the day of Julian's freedom. So thank you so much.
This new chapter in Julian and our lives, we ask for your support as well. In the coming hours, we intend to start an emergency fund for Julian's health and recovery. I ask if you can, please contribute and help us into this new phase of Julian's freedom.
And we'll have more information on that at the end of this segment. But Just after the news broke, WikiLeaks tweets out Julian Assange is free. Julian Assange is free. He left Belmarsh Maximum Security Prison on the morning of June 24th after having spent 1,901 days there. He was granted bail by the High Court in London and was released at Stansted Airport during the afternoon, where he boarded a plane and departed the UK. So by the time news broke, he had already been out. This is the result of a global campaign that spanned grassroots organizers, press freedom campaigners, legislators, and leaders from across the political spectrum, all the way to the United Nations. This created the space for a long period of negotiations with the U.S. Department of Justice, leading to a deal that has not yet formally finalized. We will provide more information as soon as possible. This was yesterday. Things are happening very quickly now. He's on a plane. He's on a couple of different planes today. So for all we know, this is officially formalized as we speak. After more than 5 years in a 2-by-3 meter cell, 23 hours a day, he will soon reunite with his wife, Stella, and their children, who have only known their father from behind bars. His son, one of his sons is 8. I forget how old the other one is, but they have never known their father as a free man. WikiLeaks published groundbreaking stories of government corruption and human rights abuses, holding the powerful accountable for their actions. As editor-in-chief, Julian paid severely for these principles and for the people's right to know. As he returns to Australia, we thank all who stood by us, fought for us, and remained utterly committed in the fight for his freedom. Julian's freedom is our freedom. More details to follow. So we have obviously a lot more to show you here as this segment goes on, but I do want to go back here. This is the result of a global campaign, which, as they said here, created the space for a long period of negotiations with the U.S. DOJ. The activism here and the pressure that was applied here is what bought them time to work this out. Now, this is not a complete political victory, as we know, because he is pleading guilty, which basically formally criminalizes the act of journalism. But certainly worlds better than what very well could have happened. And for a long time, smart money was on the fact that, or was on the possibility, thankfully never actually turned into a fact, that he would die in jail. That was looking like an inevitable outcome for a very long time. But the action and the pressure is what bought Julian and his family and his team the time to get here. And it was hugely, hugely important and a huge victory in that way. We have plenty more. Do you want to say anything before we go on?
Yeah, if you hadn't had such a global pressure campaign, it's hard to imagine you would have had this outcome. And a lot of it, you've speculated, and you're probably right. With all of the other problems the Biden campaign is having, they did not want him dying in prison on his watch before November, particularly given that exactly the people who are refusing to vote for him over Palestine, doubly so, are going to refuse to vote for him under those circumstances. But, and this is not in any way to imply that Julian had any responsibility to do other than what he did to return to his family, but it does set a very dangerous precedent. Yes, everyone who cares about this man and his family and feels rightly he's done his bit for king and country at this point, and he deserves to go home. This is a joyous thing, but it's also a very ominous outcome for even people like us.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No
what
doubt about that.
What happens when Jose brings us the LaRouche files?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Stella Assange tweets out, Julian is free. This was last night. Words cannot express our immense gratitude to you, in capital letters. Yes, you, who have all mobilized for years and years to make this come true. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Follow WikiLeaks for more info. So here's the first video released from yesterday morning, UK time, when he was released.
Well, it'll have a number. We don't. Okay.
And, not only is that surreal to just see him walking around outside, because don't forget, even before he went to jail, he was locked in
He was
a
in
room.
Ecuador,
He was in an
yeah.
embassy. I mean, he couldn't go outside in the sun. Just to see that is a surreal sight. But I got to say, he looks great. He looks terrific. I mean, he looks healthy. Obviously,
It looks better than anyone expected. Yeah.
better than anyone expected. Yeah, absolutely. So just an amazing sight to see. We'll do this one more time here.
Well, it'll have a number we don't. Okay.
He seems calm.
Moving
focused.
around very well. There were reports of people who went to see him twitching, eyes twitching, punching himself in the head, going crazy. I mean, you're in solitary, so, this is part of what made this incredibly stressful, aside from just the infuriating nature of the case itself, is you really felt tick, 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 tick. You felt every second counted because he was just not in good health. But he looks great there. And obviously there's a lot of mental health and physical health recovery that he has to undergo. But, to the naked eye there, he looks a lot better than I thought. I'll speak only for myself, but I'm pretty sure I could speak for a lot of people.
He looks better than he did when they dragged him out of the Ecuadorian embassy.
Fucking guy looks... He looks better than me. He looks healthier than I do. Yeah, he looks like he's in better shape than me.
Well, it's because you actually have to take care of those kids. Give them 6 months at home now.
That's true. Okay, so now we're going to take a look here. Going underground, the court documents of Julian Assange's plea deal with the United States. So here it has been published on X. The paperwork from the so-called United States government. This is the plea deal that Julian Assange had to sign here. We're not going to read the first 2 pages. That's all boring stuff. But, Russell, if you could full screen and read that page 3 on the left, that's kind of important.
Okay. Defendant Julian Paul Assange, who will be first brought to the District of the Northern Mariana Islands, knowingly and unlawfully conspired with Chelsea Manning to commit the following offenses against the United States: to receive and obtain documents, writings, and notes connected with the national defense, including such materials classified up to the secret level for the purpose of obtaining information respecting the national defense, and knowing and with reason to believe at the time such materials were received and obtained, they had been and would be taken, obtained, and disposed of by a person contrary to the provisions of blah, 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 to willfully communicate documents relating to the national defense, including documents classified up to a secret level, from persons having lawful possession of or access to such documents to persons not entitled to receive them in violation of Title 18, and so on. To willfully communicate documents relating to the national defense from persons in unauthorized possession of such documents to persons not entitled to receive them in violation of Title 18, in furtherance of the conspiracy and to accomplish its objects, Assange and Manning committed lawful and unlawful overt acts, all in violation of Title 18.
Yeah, signed douchebag, whatever his name is, Sean Anderson, and then whoever the functionary is under there, Matthew McKenzie, right? So anyway, that is obviously
this fucking
a load.
Scumbag douchebag.
Exactly. I mean, that is obviously a load of garbage. There was never any hack. There was a very brief text exchange where Julian recommended Chelsea Manning try a couple of different passwords, neither of which worked. So that's obviously just a complete load of garbage, as we know, which is why this is a tad bittersweet on the political front. It's a tremendous personal story. We're all very, very happy. Family man that I am, I could only imagine being separated from my kids or having my kids separated from me growing up, with me in jail for a bullshit charge. I mean, just the devastating toll that this took on the family is what made the stakes especially high too. I mean, this was a very, very tragic human story for such a long time. And the fact that chapter is now over, and that he looks healthier than I expected. Obviously, we cannot go by a video. There's obviously a lot of work that he's going to have to undergo. There's going to be a long road to recovery. But the fact that he's up and moving around and outside is just an amazing sight to see as a personal story. And then obviously that load of shit where they had him plead guilty to something that he knows he didn't do. But fuck it. You got to get free. You got to get free.
Yes.
You got the wife, you got the kids, you got a whole life ahead of you. He's not done contributing to the discourse. I don't know if he's going to be texting Chelsea Manning anytime soon, but he's certainly not done adding to this world. He's got a lot more to give to the world, and just as importantly, given where he is and how much he's done already, he's got a lot more to give to his wife and to his kids, and it's just a fantastic thing that he is home. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question, we talked about this on the Patron show last night. Is he going to speak out? What are the terms of his plea? Does he have any kind of a gag order? Or does he go home and say, yeah, I had to sign it, but no, of course I wasn't guilty of anything, and this is very dangerous for journalists. Under these standards, they could have prosecuted Woodward and Bernstein. They could have prosecuted Daniel Ellsberg. They could have prosecuted Bill Bradley, the publisher at the time of the Washington Post. So I'm curious to see what he's going to be saying about that and whether he's allowed to say anything about that.
From what I've read so far, and this is relatively breaking news still. This has been out for less than 24 hours. From what I've read so far, I've not read anything about any kind of gag order or any restriction on what he can say and what he cannot say. That's not to say it doesn't exist, but I have not read any of that so far. So obviously he's going to take some much deserved and much needed family time now, but I do think he will be back. Maybe not in the way he was before, but I think he will have plenty to say. I can't imagine he's going to just keep his mouth shut about this for the rest of his time. So here is another tweet, another great site, another heartwarming site to see. This is Stella tweeting out in the wee hours of yesterday morning, Eastern time at least, Julian calling into Sydney from Stansted Airport last night. So there he is, FaceTiming with the wife, and here we go on Hotspot. This is footage of Assange arriving in Bangkok. So this was today. So here's some more footage from just a few hours ago.
Yeah, it's just like maybe like $100 to go to Sydney or something like that, or up to the other one.
I mean, I know I don't mean to say the same thing over and over again, and I know I'm in no position to diagnose anything, but to me, just as a layman, it's amazing the guy could even walk. Like, it's amazing the guy could fucking do anything, given what he's been through. It's amazing that the will that this guy had to make it this far and come out in this shape. And again, I'm not saying he has a totally clean bill of health. I'm in no spot to say that, obviously. But the fact that he's able to just function like that is amazing from where I'm sitting. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, just watching him, I'm saying this has got to be so surreal for him.
Yeah,
the guy hasn't been outside in 12 years.
12 years.
He was in the Ecuadorian embassy, and then he was in Belmarsh.
Yeah.
He didn't have any outdoor activity, from what I understand, at Belmarsh. He was on lockdown 23 hours a day.
Yeah, he had 1 hour of exercise time, and then he was locked in a room.
Yeah,
so
that's what we do here in Supermax prisons.
Yeah.
Which, if that's not cruel and unusual punishment, I don't know what is. But yeah, now of course there's the question right now. this whole thing's probably really putting the zap on his head. Like, he's probably in shock, honestly. Like, you get out
Yeah, I can't imagine.
after 12 years like that.
Yeah, it was 12 years. That's what I mean. People say 5 years. It was 5 years of torture, 5 years of
Right.
actual fucking
Right.
psychological and to a certain extent physical torture. But before that, it was 8.5 years of being locked in a room.
Right.
Yeah. So to see him move around like this is more than he's moved around in over a decade. I mean, just think about that. It's incredible.
Yeah.
WikiLeaks then tweets out, this was right before we went on, 12:45 p.m. Eastern. Imagine from over 5 years in a small cell in a maximum security prison, nearly 14 years detained in the UK, to this. For the privilege, quote unquote, Julian Assange must pay over $500,000 US. This is to charter the jet, and please help if you can. Obviously, we're going to throw this link up on the screen here. This is their crowdfunder. They are about 20% to their goal as of airtime, and hopefully they are at their goal by the end of the day. But if you want to help out, please do. And we're going to show this video.
$500,000.
Yeah. Yeah, not cheap. Not cheap to fly around the world. You know, there's all kinds of other fucking expenses, probably. There's the movie.
Wow.
George Galloway tweets out, I supported Julian Assange from the first. I supported him against fake allegations when others were calling him foul and demanding his extradition to Sweden. Those were the sexual assault charges that ended up being dropped multiple times. That case was actually dropped. I supported him against the British state prosecutor Keir Starmer, against Biden, against Trump. My then 7-year-old son drew a childish plan whereby Julian could escape across the rooftops of Knightsbridge. My family's joy that he is now free and with his family overfloweth. By Wednesday, on the Mother of All Talk Shows, I will have plenty to say about what happened to him. My salute to all his faithful supporters around the world. The victory is yours. Aaron Mate, Julian Assange is free. It's so nice to have some actual good news in this cruel, unjust world. Amen. We want to give a special shout out to our friend Misty Winston, who has to be feeling pretty damn good right now. I'm proud of us. We are proud of you, my friend, for, leading the way in this space of ours. You were always the go-to person on all things related to this issue. So I hope you are enjoying this day as you very much deserve to. Let's see what AOC has to say about this.
We broke this last night.
Yeah.
But Misty will finally be realizing her dream of starting a trad wife Instagram account now that this has been put to bed. And we're talking about doing a partnership on that because we're dropping the Wednesdays. So it might be Trad Wife Corner with Misty. Might move into that slot. We'll see.
Well, actually, she tweeted out, too. I didn't feature this, but she tweeted out how, actually, this is not put to bed. Now, you should organize around a full pardon against a full dropping of the charges to correct the record and compensation. He shouldn't have to raise $500,000 from us. He should be compensated for this. This was an absolute crime that happened to him. But let's see what AOC had to say about this. I'm sure she had something to say. New York, today is primary election day. It's time to vote. Polls open now until 8 p.m. Picture of her empty rally the other day. Let's see if Jamal Bowman wanted to rally the troops at the last minute around this. We're out here early to ensure that the people's voice is heard. Every vote counts and every second counts today. We need you to volunteer with us throughout the day, whether it's for 5 minutes or 5 hours, to ensure that New York 16 gets to the polls. The reason I included those, and Bernie didn't have any tweets about anything.
Right.
But the reason I included this is to show that none of those three idiots at the rally the other day have said anything about this in the past 16 hours. Not a thing. Not a
really?
single.
Those fiery radicals? Bowman didn't say, motherfucking Julian Assange finally got the fuck out of prison. That's the motherfucker that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You didn't say that?
Yeah. No, nothing.
No? Not even. He couldn't even spare an F-bomb for Julian.
No. Dropped a bunch of them on stage, but nothing for
Julian. He was giving them out so freely at his rally.
Yeah. Yep. But that's the story. An amazing story. We will have a lot more on this throughout the week, obviously, because there's going to be a lot of reactions that are worth responding to, including one that we have coming up next. We have a little fun piece on one high-profile reaction to this development. But anything to add to close this first part out?
Well, as Bowman, AOC, and Bernie go, so go the shit libs, because right now, and I mentioned this to you, and we'll get into this more on the show tomorrow. You know, the shit libs, they take up their pet virtue signals. There are certain things they just all collectively choose to hone in on certain excesses of the right wing, and very, very often they're things that I agree with, but they use them as a substitute for a meaningful politics. They will adopt these things and put them in place of having to take real positions on difficult issues like Julian Assange that might not be so popular around the water cooler with their fellow shit libs, because he revealed the DNC, so
right.
But they're all about the Louisiana law of wanting to put up the 10 Commandments in classrooms, which of course we're against. But the way that they deploy that in order to cover up their lack of any meaningful agenda, as with this. So Julian Assange is freed, not a fucking word. Those MAGA Republicans, the 10 Commandments in the classroom, that's all they want to talk about.
Yeah.
There's something significant like this happens. And again, I'm not saying that's not significant. I would argue it's not as significant. I would argue it's not as immediate. And I would argue if you are not sure what you think about this because you've gotten mixed signals from the establishment, Rachel Maddow went up there and kind of apologetically and sheepishly said, yeah, it is kind of a threat to free speech. Honestly, that is the only reason you're not seeing them say he should have done 25 years. The only reason you're not seeing that is because some of their idols kind of sort of were like, yeah, guys, in the end, this is bad for everybody. So just not saying anything. And that is why when you look at when they get on board with these causes like the 10 Commandments in the classrooms, they almost make you for it because you're so disgusted by the people who are against it and the way they're using the issue.
Yeah, well, it certainly creates, makes the issue, I don't want to say feel less important, but it definitely puts it down on your list of priorities, right? Because you just kind of want to wash your hands of that, because you just feel like, hey, if you got nothing to say about genocide or about Julian Assange, then who gives a fuck about what you have to say about anything else?
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Exactly.
Please clap.